Germany, the country of precision, the land of engineers, a nation that taught the world how to build things that last. Cars, chemicals, trains, bridges. For decades, that reputation was its identity. It wasn't just pride, it was power. But what happens when that power starts to vanish? By the end of this video, you'll understand why the cracks are turning into fractures, why factories are closing, why entire supply chains are bleeding, why bridges and trains are failing, and why a confident, orderly society is waking up anxious and unsure. Stay with me, because this isn't a theory. It's a slow-motion collapse, and it affects everything. The industrial and economic pillars. For over 70 years, German cars didn't just move people, they built the country. Taxes from Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes funded schools, hospitals, pensions. Entire towns, careers, identities revolved around them. Then Volkswagen said the unsayable. In September 2024, the company hinted it might close plants in Germany. For the first time in nearly 90 years, a semi-state institution threatened to leave the country that built it. The social contract, jobs first, profits second, is broken. Why? The math changed. European car demand never recovered after the pandemic. 500,000 cars are missing each year. The output of 2 factories. Structural shrinkage, not a bad quarter. Now imagine Wolfsburg, a city built around a single factory, facing a future where that factory is no longer guaranteed. Imagine entire towns where careers, mortgages, and daily life followed the factory bell. The unspoken promise of lifetime employment in exchange for social peace is collapsing. China, once Germany's growth engine, turned predator. German automakers taught China to make cars. Chinese brands bought the knowledge, then leapfrogged in EVs with cheap batteries, software, and state support. German EVs are now expensive gadgets. Tariffs couldn't save them. Germany didn't just lose market share, it lost a growth model. And the real damage? The middle stand. Family-run suppliers. When the big automakers cut production or leave, demand vanishes. Orders stop. Jobs disappear. Skills honed for decades are lost forever. Entire regions collapse with the factory pipelines. This isn't a downturn, it's permanent capability loss. The energy suicide. Cars aren't the only industry under siege. Germany's energy policy is quietly suffocating the factories that still remain. For years, Berlin insisted this was the future. Clean, moral, inevitable. The Energiewende wasn't merely an energy transition, it was framed as a national virtue. To question it was to reveal a lack of concern for the planet. But factories don't run on virtue. They run on electricity, and in Germany, electricity became a liability. Energy-intensive industries, chemicals, steel, refineries, are being priced out of existence. While competitors in the United States benefit from cheap gas in China Power's industry with subsidized coal and hydro, Germany pretended that all markets play by the same rules. They don't. High energy costs are not a temporary shock. They are a structural competitiveness problem, and pretending otherwise is economic suicide. The turning point came in 2011. After Fukushima, Germany committed to a full nuclear phase-out. It was a decision driven by fear, an emotional reaction to a disaster on the other side of the world. Angela Merkel's coalition ignored domestic experts who argued that German nuclear plants were among the safest in the world, equipped with flood protections and multiple redundant fail-safes. The decision was political, not technical. By 2022, the cumulative cost of this energy experiment in the electricity sector alone had reached roughly 520 billion euros. This money didn't disappear. German households and businesses paid for it through levies and fees that pushed electricity prices among the highest in the industrialized world. Industry absorbed the shock until it couldn't. Retrospective studies suggest that maintaining nuclear power would have saved hundreds of billions of euros while reducing emissions far more efficiently. Instead, the gap was filled chaotically. Coal when renewables failed, gas when coal was politically inconvenient, much of it cheap Russian gas. In the process, Germany traded energy stability for moral posturing and made itself dangerously dependent. The energy crisis of 2022 exposed that vulnerability in brutal clarity. When supply was threatened, Prices exploded. What had been framed as a virtuous transition was revealed as a strategic failure. Policy choices have consequences. Removing stable, low-carbon baseload power without ready substitutes left industry and ordinary Germans paying the price. High energy costs are not an academic concern. They force companies to relocate. Factories close. Research and development moves abroad. Supply chains fragment. Germany is no longer just losing plants. It is exporting its industrial future. The erosion of state capacity, and even if factories survive, the skeleton of the nation, its bridges, trains, and grids, is crumbling beneath them. A nation's infrastructure is a contract. Trains will run, bridges will hold, power will flow. That contract is fraying. After Wiederversöhnung and reunification, Germany rebuilt its cities, highways, and networks. But decades later, all those systems are aging at once. Maintenance was postponed, budgets tightened, and political obsession with balanced books left a backlog estimated in the hundreds of billions. When maintenance becomes optional, neglect becomes inevitable. Take bridges. On September 11, 2024, a major bridge section in Dresden collapsed into the Elbe. Corroded steel tendons, known to engineers, were patched over for years. Temporary fixes until failure. This wasn't an act of God. It was an act of omission. And it didn't stop there. Critical viaducts are unsafe. Demolitions sever vital routes, and entire regions feel the ripple effects. Every bridge collapse chips away at the implicit trust that German engineering equals safety. Then there's Deutsche Bahn. Once a national pride, now a costly embarrassment. In 2024, only 62.5% of long-distance trains arrived on time. Behind that number lie canceled trains, chaotic platforms, and stranded commuters. The old infrastructure is over capacity. One signal failure can cascade into nationwide disruption. Unreliable rail pushes freight onto fragile roads, slows business, and drains productivity. A system built for efficiency is now a drag on efficiency itself. Germany's infrastructure isn't just aging, it's quietly unraveling. And each failure is a reminder. The backbone of an industrial nation can't survive on goodwill and nostalgia alone. Too much bureaucracy. While other countries digitize, Germany clings to paper. Even in 2024, surveys showed fax use persisted. The state that once perfected process now asks citizens to show up physically to register an address or apply for benefits. This isn't quaint. It's a growth killer. Startups wait months for simple paperwork. International founders incorporate abroad out of frustration. The digital ministry exists in name, but its fragmented authority and risk-averse culture slow the kind of systemic reforms that deliver real change. When the public sector cannot move, the private sector finds workarounds, and the nation loses time, talent, and investment. Infrastructure and state capacity are not glamorous. They don't make headlines like a corporate scandal or a terrorist attack, but they matter more because they are the plumbing of modern life. When the plumbing fails, the society that relied on it leaks. Cultural fragmentation. Germany's crisis isn't only economic, it's cultural, and pretending otherwise is dishonest. Over the last decade, Germany accepted millions of migrants at once, faster than any serious integration system could realistically handle. This wasn't controlled migration. It wasn't selective migration. It was mass, rapid, unmanaged inflow, and the consequences were predictable. Integration does not happen automatically. It requires language acquisition, respect for local laws, shared civic norms, and above all, time and enforcement. Germany largely assumed these things would emerge on their own. They didn't. Values matter, whether elites want to admit it or not. Every stable society runs on shared expectations. That you work if you can, that you follow the law, that you respect institutions, and that you don't permanently outsource responsibility to the state. When large groups arrive without these norms, and the state refuses to enforce integration, tension becomes inevitable. Not because people are racist, but because systems break when the assumptions they rely on break. This tension is reflected in hard data, not feelings. Research from the Federal Criminal Police Office, the BKA, highlights a politically sensitive trend. a disproportionate involvement of non-German suspects in crime statistics. In 2024, non-German suspects accounted for around 900,000 individuals, compared to around 1.2 million German suspects, a level of overrepresentation far beyond their share of the population. Germany's breakdown is visible in its Christmas markets. Once open and communal, they're now security zones, concrete barriers, bollards, armed police. After the 2016 Berlin attack and the 2024 Magdeburg attack, celebration turned into containment. Fear has a cost. Security expenses are up 44% in 3 years, forcing small towns to cancel markets altogether. Culture is disappearing under permanent counter-terror measures. The deeper failure is political. Instead of admitting mistakes, institutions dismiss public concern about crime, safety, schools, and integration. That didn't stop extremism, it created it. The far right gained ground not because it was right, but because it was willing to say something went wrong. Now polarization hardens, and innocent migrants who work, integrate, and contribute face growing suspicion. This is the result of mismanagement. When governments refuse to draw clear lines, societies draw crude ones. Multiculturalism without integration isn't tolerance, it's negligence. And Germany is paying for it in trust, cohesion, and political stability. The loss of trust in political polarization. Trust in institutions is the lubricant that keeps democracies running. When that trust erodes, everything slows. Decision-making, cooperation, reform. Trust in democratic institutions in Germany has fallen. A rising share of citizens question election legitimacy. A worrying minority even express openness to authoritarian alternatives. The East-West divide complicates this further. Older industrial communities in the East feel left behind, alienated, resentful. When half the population thinks the system isn't working for them, political life becomes a contest for legitimacy. Coalitions become harder to form. Consensus becomes rarer. The very machinery for change becomes gridlocked. Education and demographics. A country only recovers if it has people who can rebuild it. That's where Germany is slipping. Start with education. PISA scores are falling. Math and science are weaker than before. For a country built on engineers and technical skill, that's not a school problem. It's a structural one. Then demographics. Germany is aging fast, retirements are accelerating, and the workforce is shrinking. Yes, skilled, intelligent immigrants help fill gaps, but they're not enough to offset declining education and mass retirement. So the equation breaks. Skills are eroding while the labor base contracts, a lethal combination for an industrial society. This isn't bad luck. It's a self-reinforcing decline. High energy costs push industry out. Industry leaving drains tax revenue. No revenue means no maintenance. Infrastructure rots. Daily life worsens. Trust collapses, and nothing gets fixed. This isn't collapse by explosion, it's collapse by neglect. Germany's model only worked while its balance is held. They don't anymore. Decline isn't inevitable, inaction is. Germany still has money, skills, and institutions. What it lacks is political courage. Without reform, decay becomes permanent. With reform, survival is possible. But the clock is ticking.